bring you into the session. So I please ask that you, as the meeting gets underway, please configure your device with the WebEx application. There are some options at the bottom of the WebEx window to do so. Either the microphone option will have the ability to configure your audio settings, or there'll be a button with 3 dots and you click on that to configure your audio settings. And Mr. Chair, it is 9:30. You do have a quorum present, so Chair Singh, I will turn the meeting over to you.
Thank you, Clerk. Good morning and welcome to our virtual meeting of Brampton's Committee of Council. We'll begin the meeting with the City Clerk calling the roll for attendance at today's meeting. Thank you.
Members of committee, I will call your name for attendance. Councillor Santos. Councillor Santos. I'll come
Present,
back.
sorry, I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Vicente.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Willens.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Paleshi.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Bowman.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Medeiros. Councillor Medeiros is currently not in the session. I'll come back. Councillor Williams.
I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Fortini, he has sent his a note that he may be in or out of the meeting. He's currently not present for roll call. Councillor Dillon.
I'm here.
Thank you. And Chair Singh is present. Councillor Medeiros. Councillor Medeiros is currently absent, as is Councillor Fortini. Mr. Chair, you do have a quorum present. You have 8 members.
Thank you. Our next item is approval of the agenda. Does any member wish to add a business item to today's meeting? If so, please use the chat function to add your name to the speakers list.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
So just to advise committee that we do have an added delegation request that will be identified as 6.6 on today's agenda from Sylvia Roberts, Brampton resident. And this is in regard to staff report item 9.2.2, a staff report to begin procurement for detailed design services for maximizing people moving capacity and public realm design for Williams Parkway between McLaughlin Road and Dixie Road in wards 1, 5, and 7.
And that's for item 9.22. Okay.
Yes.
Anybody else have any other items to add? Or okay, I don't see it. So seeing no other additions to the agenda, we have a motion moved by Councillor Dillon to approve the agenda. Instead, is anybody opposed? Okay, hearing and seeing none, the motion carries. Next up, we have the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
We have to do declarations of interest, item 3.
Sorry, do any members have any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Okay, seeing and hearing none, I'll carry on to the consent agenda. Committee, as part of our consent motion process, I will read each agenda item that is subject to the consent motion, and any member may verbally identify the item to be held for debate during the meeting. Any item not held for debate will be considered as part of the consent motion and voted on for approval. Any of the following agenda items will not be subject to the consent motion for approval: announcements, delegations, presentations, added new business, member discussion items, member question period, and public question period. I'll start reading the relevant agenda items and members can identify any items to be held for debate. So starting with 8.2.1 staff report, request to begin procurement, supply and delivery of stationery and office supplies for a 3-year period. Okay, that'll be on consent. 9.2.1 staff report, request to begin procurement, supply and delivery of Cummins engines parts for transit buses for a 3-year period. Okay, consent. 9.2.3 staff report, request to begin procurement, engineering services for improvements on McVean Drive between Castlemore and Countryside Drive, wards 8 and 10. Okay, consent. 9.2.5 staff report regarding traffic bylaw 93/93 administrative update. Okay, consent staff report regarding parking considerations on Seymour Road, Ward 9. Okay, consent 9.2.7 staff report regarding parking related concerns, Rawling Crescent, Ward 2. Consent 9.4.2 correspondence from Scott Butler, Executive Director, Good Roads, dated October 14th, 2021, regarding call for nominations to the 2022-2023 Good Roads Board of Directors. Okay, consent 15.1 open meeting exception under section 239 2C of the Municipal Act 2001, proposed or pending acquisition of disposition of land by the municipality or local board. A, consent 15.2 open meeting exception under section 2392C of the Municipal Act 2001, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. Okay, consent 15.3 open meeting exception under section 2392C of the Municipal Act 2001, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board.
Hold, please.
Okay, we're holding 15.3. The clerk will summarize those items to be included on the consent motion for approval.
So, Mr. Chair, in the effort of simplicity, all the items that you have identified will be added to the consent motion, save and except for item 15.3, an open meeting exception under section 239(2)C of the Municipal Act, closed meeting item regarding a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. That item is being held by Councillor Bowman.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Bowman to approve the consent motion. As per a trial process agreed to by council, the consent motion will be subject to a recorded vote.
All members in favor of the consent motion, please indicate. Councillor Santos.
Yes.
Councillor Vicente.
In favor.
Councillor Willens.
Yes.
Councillor Willens, was that a yes?
Oh, sorry, Peter, yes.
Thank you. Councillor Paleshi.
In favor.
Councillor Bowman.
Yes.
Councillor Medeiros. I don't see as present at the moment. Councillor Williams.
Yes.
Councillor Fortini.
Yes, in favor.
Thank you. Councillor Dillon.
Yes.
Chair Singh.
Yes.
That motion carries unanimously 9-0.
All right, thank you. Moving on to announcements. We don't have any today, so moving on to public delegation. 6.1 is a delegation from Dinesh Sharma, founder and CEO, Brilliant Minds Group, regarding program and services for the immigrant community. Welcome, Dinesh. You have 5 minutes for your delegation, and I will give you a warning when you have 1 minute left. Thank you.
Good morning, honorable council members. Is everybody able to hear me correctly?
Yes, we can.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So my name is Dinesh Sharma. I'm the founder and CEO of Brilliant Minds Group. More importantly, I'm an immigrant who came to Canada to make a life, and Canada is a beautiful country. Canada has given me a lot. So Brilliant Minds Group is now giving it back to the community. Can we move to the next slide, please? So this is some of the agenda items that we have it, which we are going to cover in our today's presentation. Next slide, please. So our story, we are a not-for-profit organization caring for the socio-economic well-being of the immigrant community or the newcomer community. We are a proud member of the Professional Immigrant Network of Toronto Region of Immigrant Employment Council. You can check TRIAC website. And the promoters of BMG are professionally settled immigrant, committed and passionate about community development. The work we are doing it out of our regular jobs. All the promoters of BMG are fully employed in respectable positions in the different organizations. And this activity, we are doing it as part of the volunteer activity to give it back to the community. Next slide, please. What's our vision? Our vision is where a future where all newcomers have equality of opportunity for career, work, and financial independence. And our mission is creating pathways for immigrants to achieve their potential in the Peel region, more importantly, in the Brampton region. BMG, as we call it, Brilliant Minds Group, would attempt to touch the life of at least 1% of the immigrant population of Brampton in the next 3 years' time. Next slide, please. So the journey since March 2020, when COVID hit and we saw 3 million Canadians lost their job, we realized that the immigrant community was the one that was largely impacted by the job losses. So since March 2020 until now, we've done 20 targeted programs totally free of cost to the community. We have not charged even a single penny to anybody. We organized a flagship program called Building Your Career in Canada. We have so far, our programs have been attended by 1,000 participants across different industries and professions. More than 50% of these participants are from the Brampton itself. We've created 25 job opportunities by connecting employers with job seekers from the Brampton region. And regular newsletters are being published to update and keep connections with the newcomer community and multi-ethnic community of the Brampton. Next slide, please. So you can see this is some of our contributions we've done. Building Your Career in Canada, Finance for Non-Finance, Networking for Success. Next slide, please. This is another one, a career in banking, recruitment challenges, professional designation, importance of professional designation. So that's some of our contributions. Next slide, please. So our wins, BMG has won a Leadership in Collaboration Award from Toronto Region in TRIAC in March 2021 for the work we are doing it to collaborate with the different industries, professionals, and other not-for-profit organizations. Canadian Immigrant Magazine, the national multimedia platform to help immigrants succeed, published a story on BMG, and community newspapers have been highlighting BMG's contributions to the community. Next slide, please. Testimonials, you can see what people are telling about us to that. I mean, I don't need to read it. You can see it says, I will always be grateful for you for your support and kindness. It would be impossible to count all the ways you've helped new immigrants like us in the initial. Or, I mean, if you go onto our website, there is at least 15 testimonials that the immigrants or the newcomers have given it to us for the work we are doing to support the community. Next slide, please.
Dinesh, you have 1 minute. Thank
you. Please. So, Road to Success, BMG team is committed to provide initial settlement. Peel attracts a lot of immigrants, and within the Peel, Brampton attracts a lot of immigrants too. We are trained mentors and coaches. And the last slide, please. Our request is currently we are doing all the virtual programs with the ease of COVID-19 restriction. We plan to run a hybrid model. So we are requesting an assistant from city staff in guiding us in applying for the Advanced Brampton Fund, allow us to run our programs in city-run facilities, conference rooms, and connect us with the Brampton entrepreneur. Because if we need to grow, if we need to support more people, we need sponsorship, we need money. So we've been spending a lot through our own pocket. Last slide, please. That's all the support that we are asking for it to. This is our website, www.bmggrp.ca. You can do it. This is my phone number, my email address. Anyone has any questions can reach out to me. I have my 3 other board members joining this meeting with me. Anyone has any question, we are here to answer any question, any council member, any attendees.
Okay,
any
thank you, Dinesh. We really appreciate it. We do actually have questions for you. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Dinesh, for coming in. Thank you through you, Chair, for, this is a really great organization. I'm so impressed with it. Brampton has been home to immigrants around the world for generations. And as a result, Brampton does have around 235 cultures, speaks over 117 languages. The growth of our city and province is due to the contributions of immigrants. So thank you, Dinesh, for coming in. And it's great to see you have over 50% of your attendees from the city of Brampton. So you're helping many of our residents. This is excellent. So I just have a couple of questions. And, you know, Dinesh, when you say you're doing this all volunteer, do you get any funding for the programs that you're running, or any of the materials or anything like that?
We have not received even a single penny, either from municipal, provincial, or federal so far. We have not got any sponsorship from any corporates. All the money that has been spent on this has come out from my personal pocket. I've spent about 20 grand so far from my personal pocket. Why did I do it? Because I'm an immigrant. I went through the challenges, so it's my way of giving back to the community, along with my team who's been devoting time and effort to develop program and services.
Wow, that's really significant. Wow. When you came to Canada, did you have support yourself navigating the system?
I was in a thing like sink or swim. Yes, my family was there. My family helped me, but I had to sink and swim. So yes, when I tried, I navigated the system. I saw there was not too many support systems that were available. I came in 2002. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yes, things are much more different now than when it was, but there are still some challenges that the immigrant goes through it. And me and my team, as I said, some of the members are already here and present with us too. We are committed to help the community. Our vision is, if we can help one individual every day, we are 10 of us, so we are technically helping 10 individuals on a daily basis, and then light one candle and let that candle light another candle and light another candle. So a time will come very soon when the whole Brampton will be lighted by the candles of knowledge that we are trying to run. We're trying to do.
That's an amazing analogy. You know, and I think in some ways, all of us do have a connection to the immigrant experience. Like my parents and I emigrated from England in 1980, and it was at times very difficult. My mom, who was a nurse in the UK, had to navigate the Canadian education system to get an RN. And my dad, who is in the trades, is a tool and die maker, had to find employment. But all of their hard work has led to successful careers. And my mom in psychiatric nursing, and my dad as an engineer. So there are pathways when you have, you know, so much strength in being able to navigate. But having that support and the support that you give just is an extra added asset. So, you know, for me, there's a lot of pride in coming from a generation of risk takers in support, in search of opportunity and security. So, you know, thank you for being able to be that light and to help guide so many immigrants as they make their way through our Canadian systems and make a life for themselves and their family and set roots.
One of the things that I say this to my team all the time is, when an immigrant succeed, then the municipality succeed. When the municipality succeed, the province succeed. And when the province succeed, Canada succeed. So on a high level end, succeeding of an immigrant is a key. And we all know the immigrants goes through all the challenges. So what we are trying to do in an indirect way is help Canada succeed by helping these immigrants find their niche or find their footing within the Brampton. And we all know Brampton attracts a large number of immigrants across. I mean, Ontario attracts a large portion of the immigrants within Ontario, Toronto, and within Toronto, Brampton attracts. So Brampton is. I'm a Brampton. I mean, I've been living in Brampton for the last 20 years time now, since the time I've come here. So Brampton is my heart.
That's great. So when through all your programs, what program has been the most successful?
We are currently running a program called Communication for Leadership series. We all know that people consider, hey, I'm good in English. English is just one portion of the communications. And I would extend an invitation to all of the council members to come and attend our this Saturday session, which is the session number 3 on the communication. Before that, we did a session on networking. It's important to know what you know, but it's more important to know who you know. We all know that part too, okay? But there are skills. Networking is a skills. which can be learned by practice, by patience. And the way I use an analogy, which many immigrants don't know, for me, networking is relationship building. And the other analogy that I have it, networking is like a bank account. You need to deposit something into the bank before you can actually withdraw it onto it too. I mean, if I go to a bank and open an account, and then next day I go to the bank and says, give me $100, bank won't give me the $100 because I haven't deposited anything into the bank. But if I keep depositing even $5 per week, and after 6 months time, bank will come to me and says, hey, do you need a line of credit for $200 or $500 or so? We need to do our part of depositing it. And many immigrants, when they land into the Canada, they say, hey, I'm going to reach out to the people, ask for a job. Well, yes, it's good, but then they still need to learn that there is an analogy that you need to invest something, and many people say, I don't know, I don't have. Yes, you have time, you have knowledge, you have valuable. So that's my part.
Well, thank you for that piece and that analogy. And so, Dinesh, thank you for sharing. I see that you have a few asks, so I have a couple of questions for staff. Through the chair to staff, there are some requests that Dinesh has put forward, and they seem pretty straightforward. And so, what opportunities are available? I know we have the Advanced Brampton Fund, but are there opportunities through the city of Brampton that he can tap into?
Thanks, Councillor. It's Jason, and through the chair. So I would share a few things. So Council's made a prior decision that these applications to the Advanced Brampton Fund would be adjudicated through the program framework, which is by staff. And my understanding is that the grants administration officer has been working with Mr. Sharma on opportunities through that. I would recommend, based on council's previous direction, that staff kind of manage that they're kind of not, I wouldn't recommend an endorsement of an application that's mid-evaluation or in process, which is what I understand to be the case. There's a number of intakes throughout the year for Advanced Brampton Fund at different funding levels for new, emerging, and expanding projects, and so those would be evaluated, and then I've been providing an update to council when those and with the projects and the organizations and the funding amounts as those are completed, so council would see that whether they were successful or not on an upcoming briefing to council.
And so with the Advanced Brampton Fund, I know the second request is to be able to use city space. Is it possible for us to do that? Because it'd be great to see at least one of his events or one of his sessions being held at a city location, just as we are starting to open, and encourage people to get back out and use our facilities and things like that. So I don't know if there's a motion that's required, but if it could be taken as direction to connect with Dinesh and to look at what spaces could be available and what that would look like. Do you need a referral motion, or is it just a recommendation that we kind of work with him to see what spaces are available?
So through the chair, I believe with respect to, I don't think that would be related through the fund necessarily, and I know there are some current restrictions on, I believe there are on facility rentals and such. I could get back to council with respect to, I don't know if it needs to be a motion, but with respect to rental expenses through the city being eligible through the grants through Advanced Brampton Fund, if they, again, and I use the if they're a successful recipient through that program. But other than that, I believe groups could rent the use of city facilities, whether that's a rec center or at City Hall, but there are again, a number of restrictions currently. I know we'll be providing a public update on some of that on Friday through a service and information update, but I'm not sure yet if that will include opening things up to rooms up to public rental.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I assume it won't happen until, yeah, we have the clearance for us to be using our facilities open to the public. So it wouldn't be a now. I think it's just as, you know, in the new year, as we get approach our roadmap to fully opening, that we have Dinesh's BMG group in mind, because they're going to be, you know, looking for space. And when we look at the city of Brampton, especially our downtown location, having the close proximity to the the Brampton Entrepreneur Center, the Beehive, and all of our other great spaces that encourage new immigrants, new entrepreneurs to explore our city and growing a business here. It'd be great if we can support the process for him to be able to have our space, use our spaces. But what that will look like, I guess, you know, as we move forward in the conversation, we'll have a better sense. But I think, Dinesh, thank you so much for coming in today. And it sounds like staff are working with you already, and getting you connected with the Brampton Entrepreneur Center, I think, is a great idea and a great option. I think BMG is great because we do really our immigrant population, they need the support, and their success is our success. So thank you so much for coming in today. And I don't have any further questions, but I know you're here, and that we're here to support you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Williams, and all the honorable council members. I am here, and my team is here. You have my contact information. It is indeed my honor and pleasure to serve Brampton, because Brampton has given me and my family a lot. So, as I said, I'm an immigrant, and helping other immigrants is my passion, is my commitment, and we will continue to do that in the coming years or so. We just need a little bit of a hand holding in terms of financials, or because you can't run empty stomach, or my wife will kick me out of the home if I keep spending the money from my personal pocket to serve the community. Just on a lighter note.
Thank you. Councillor Williams, are you done?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Dillon, you have the floor.
Thank you. Just a very quick question to Mr. Sharma. Saturday, what is the event you said you were holding? Where is it, and what is it? Can you provide the details?
So the event this Saturday we are saying Communication for Leadership series. So this is the third Saturday that the event is happening, and the title for this Saturday's or the theme for this Saturday's session is how to make effective presentations. Because when immigrant comes here, then yes, they have the technical knowledge, but it's what you know is important, but how you present it is more important. So the various ways you can make an effective presentation, our facilitator is going to teach all the participants. Councillor Dillon, if you need the information, I will be more than happy to send the event details. It starts at 11 o'clock. It's a virtual session, 11 to 12, 12:30. In the last session that we had we had about 45 participants participated across the Canada, and few there were from the other regions also. So I'm more than happy to send the link for the session this Saturday.
Sure. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you. My honor.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Williams to receive the delegation. Is there anyone opposed to this motion? Otherwise, your vote will count in the affirmative. Hearing and seeing none. Thank you. The motion carries. Moving on to Delegation 6.2 from Toronto Global regarding Toronto Global update. I will pass it on to Mark Cohan, Stephen Lund, and Daniel Hagenveld. And if I said your name incorrectly, you could please correct me. And after the delegation, we can consider the staff report 12.2.1 and have any questions for that. So I pass it on to the delegation. Mark, Stephen, and Daniel, you have up to 5 minutes.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Brown, Chair, and members of the council. I'm Mark Cohan. I'm the Chair of Toronto Global. You're going to hear from me briefly, Stephen Lund, our CEO, and Daniel Hangavel, who's the head of investment attractions. I think it's appropriate that we're talking to you now as we're at the final few months of our funding agreement with Brampton, as well as the other municipalities that make up Toronto Global. And as the chair, I'd like to talk high level just for a moment. More than ever, I feel the need for an investment attraction agency like Toronto Global is more important than ever as we build back the economy in the Toronto region coming out of the pandemic. Really talking about the scale of this entire region is mission critical, because today we're not competing against Pittsburgh or Detroit or even Chicago. What we're competing against is New York and London and Singapore and even Montreal in our own backyard. Just at a very high level, since the inception of Toronto Global in 2017, we've had 151 new investments in the region, over 8,600 jobs created, and $1.7 billion in capital fused into the region. On a yearly basis, because of all the new jobs that have been created, that's about an inflow of about another $1 billion every year into the region. So often in my role, I think it's important to think big picture. And for those who've been on council for a long period of time and know Toronto Global since it was set up in 2017, I want to reflect back on the Amazon HQ2 process that we all worked together on to attract Amazon to the region. That collective effort, I think, really raised the bar and the profile of Toronto Global on a global scene. Since that time, Amazon has invested hundreds of millions of additional dollars into the Toronto region. They've created new fulfillment centers just over your border in Caledon, in Durham, Toronto, and in York. They put an AI hub with hundreds of engineers in the Toronto region. They've created about 3,000 new jobs, which has been quite remarkable. And I'm confident that the people of Brampton and residents of Brampton have benefited from those new jobs that have been created. Well, the headquarters, the fulfillment centers haven't been in Brampton. I'm confident that people of Brampton are employed in many of those opportunities. So to wrap up my piece before I turn it over to Stephen, I just want to say thank you for your continued support and the belief that our collective efforts to talk about the ecosystem of this entire region really does float everyone's boat. And when I think about the work that Mayor Brown and the EDO team is doing in some of their missions we have supported, telling a story about Brampton, no one can do it better than the people who live in Brampton, but telling that story as part of a broader ecosystem in the fastest growing region in North America, I think in the end of the day does help the Brampton story and does help us attract more investment in the entire region. So thank you very much, and I'll turn it over to Stephen now.
Thanks, Mark. Chair, Mayor Brown, Chair, councillors, thanks for this opportunity. I've been in the role for about a year now and living the wonderful world of Zoom. And as we come out of this pandemic and we open up a bit more, I'm really looking forward to having a chance to meet you in person, to getting out more in the regions. We're actually seeing increased activity, companies starting to come in, meeting in person. We actually had a really good year. We worked throughout the region. Our job numbers are roughly 50-50 in Toronto, 416 and the 905 region. I'm very optimistic. The pipeline we've built up, as Mark mentioned, it's a regional story. Jobs, the company may locate in some location, but people are living all over the place, and we're seeing people leave the downtown to move out in the 905 area, but still work with some of the companies. So it's an exciting time for us. We're very optimistic. We appreciate the support, and we look forward to continued support. I'll turn it over to Daniel now. I know we only have 5 minutes, so I'll turn it to Daniel to make a couple of specific comments. Daniel?
Perfect. Thank you, Stephen. Can you hear me okay? I'm just having a bit of mic trouble here.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yep, thank you. Perfect. Well, thank you again, Council, for the opportunity to address you this morning. I do want to make it clear, and picking up on what Stephen and Mark said, the Brampton value proposition that we weave into the narrative value proposition that we tell companies every day does get told in the boardrooms and in the conversations we have with prospective investors. The assets that you have in cybersecurity and space technology, the innovation district you're building, and the advantages in advanced manufacturing and food and beverage and logistics are incredibly important to the assets, the value proposition, and the advantages that we talk about. Just in terms of what we do specifically, when we work with Brampton, we work very closely with the economic development team there. In addition to what we offer—
30 seconds. Thank you.
Perfect. I'll highlight very quickly then 2 key initiatives for everyone here. First of all, we are working on a targeted regional campaign where we are going to reach out to 500 to 600 of the top companies in a particular sector selected by Brampton. That should launch in the next couple of months. We have built the lead referral system in partnership with the Brampton staff. And finally, we're launching a supply chain initiative that's going to focus very much on assets and sectors important to Brampton. This was done in consultation with the economic development team, and specifically going to focus on food and beverage, as suggested by Brampton Economic Development. This is, of course, on top of the meeting support, the social media and marketing support that we offer, and setting up meetings in support of virtual and in-person missions attended by the economic development team, the mayor, and councillors. So, recognizing the time, I'll leave it there.
Thank you. And we do have some questions. Councillor Santos.
Thank you so much. Through you, Chair, thanks for coming in to delegate, and I appreciate there's been some success in the Toronto region, but as you know, we at Brampton had some concerns in terms of what this meant, what our investment meant for jobs and job creation in Brampton. And just looking at the report and you know, to date to 2021, there still isn't much there for us in terms of jobs, job creation specifically in Brampton. And I still feel like we're subsidizing Toronto and Mississauga because that seems to be where all the stuff is going. So how are we going to catch up to those KPIs? Because I know that we're up, like our 5-year funding of Toronto Global and our participation is up in March. So right now there was only one investment, and that wasn't a greenfield investment, that was an expansion of an existing business. So how is Toronto Global going to do better to support Brampton?
Sure. Thanks for the question, and I totally understand the question. It's you know, it is a competitive world out there. We're competing with places around the world. You know, we've certainly done a lot, we believe, to try and attract business to the Brampton area. We will continue, as Daniel mentioned. We have a lot of specific initiatives around getting the word out about Brampton, about bringing companies there. At the end of the day, companies decide where they want to set up. We can bring them all over the place, but at the end of the day, they would decide where to set up. Again, it's you know, it's not for a lack of trying. We are really trying to do our best, and we think we've done a great job in getting up to a 50-50 split in 905 and 416. We will continue to try and generate as much activity as we can in each of the regions, including Brampton. And again, we've got very specific initiatives to reach out to hundreds of companies around the world through this new initiative we have, plus our supply chain initiative. So we've got lots of activity. We're optimistic, and we're just trying to do the best we can to help generate new jobs and new investment in the area.
Okay, thank you.
And next we have Councillor Vicente.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Stephen, for the presentation. You mentioned in your presentation a couple of things. With respect to Amazon and a lot of the expansion that they have done, not just in Brampton, but in other cities, of course, across the country, in order to make sure that they are located well to serve their customers. Did Toronto Global have any specific involvement with respect to them locating in Brampton?
Daniel, again, Amazon was a bit before my time, but clearly, I think through our discussions and the initial bid, opened a lot of eyes to the whole organization of Amazon in terms of what the country and specifically the region has to offer. Daniel, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I would just add to that too that, Councillor, I think you've identified one of the challenges with the work that we do and with the regional model. So much of what we do is large scale promotion, talking about the benefits of the region. And again, the Amazon example and the HQ2 bid that we put together is one of them. It's hard to sort of take your pen out and circle all those individual investments they made across the region and chop it up to that. To answer your question directly, no, we did not have involvement in specifically locating the Amazon facility in Brampton. But I think the work that we did do and the promotion that we put out there and the assets and the advantages that we showcased helped Amazon think differently about the Toronto region and made them realize that this is a place where they could make multiple investments, grow across the region, and access all those benefits.
Daniel, the Amazon bid itself. Sorry, go ahead, Mark. Yeah.
Stephen, I just wanted to add to that because, I became chair just when the Amazon bid dropped. And, I spent a lot of time with the Amazon people, hosting them when they came into the Toronto region and taking them around. And I think Daniel's point is clear. I want to make 2 points. Right after that bid, and we introduced them to people at the Vector Institute. We introduced them to people at University of Toronto. They decided to then put hundreds of new engineers in the Toronto region and take 6 floors in an office building to fill it up with machine learning technology, because I think they were learning about what was going on in the Toronto region. If you talk to Chair Henry over in Halton, we didn't work specifically on them opening up new facilities out in Pickering, but he credits us with the work that we did to change the perception of the Toronto region. So I just want to reinforce that point. I think that Daniel did. While we didn't work specifically on those initiatives, I think our collective efforts really did change the mindset of Amazon to invest more in the Toronto region.
Okay. Through you, Chair, another question I have as I'm listening to you speak. You pointed out correctly that many people who live in Brampton commute into Toronto for work, and in many cases there are employers whose the majority of their workforce comes from the 905 and in particular from Brampton. What kind of conversations have you had, instances where you're pushing companies that are located outside of Brampton but their workforce is predominantly from the 905. Have you tried to point out to them the benefits of locating closer to where their workforce is? Have you had conversations like that in order to attract business investment, say from areas more distant from Brampton into Brampton?
Daniel, do you want to take that?
Sure, I can start off, and great question, Councillor. To be entirely clear, the primary companies that we work with are foreign. So when a company has set up here, we typically don't get involved. But there are a couple of things that we're working on within that regard. One, you're absolutely right. Understanding the talent landscape here across the region, commuting patterns, and sort of drawing a heat map of where our company's best location is based on their needs is exactly the work that we do. Oftentimes, it literally comes down to exactly that. Where can they find the best talent? Where is their workforce? And how can they best access it to position themselves for success here in the Toronto region? If you look at the numbers that Toronto Global has, just sort of a rough back-of-the-envelope calculation, of the 3,000 or so jobs that have located in the Peel region through our investments, about 2,500 of those are located within a 6.5-minute drive from the Brampton border. So these companies are accessing that talent pool that you have in Brampton. They are getting close. And often what happens in these conversations is, at the end of the day, it comes down to finding the perfect site. And, so far, we haven't been able to sort of crack that nut, just given the challenges in the real estate market right now. That being said, I think it's important to point out that of the leads that were specified in the staff note, of the 35, there have been 5 or 6 in that list that have had potential workforce implications of 300 employees plus, and some significantly higher than that. So, Councillor, I think to your point, yes, one, companies are looking to access that talent pool. They're looking to get close. It's just a matter of can they do that by accessing the real estate market, getting past those challenges, and finding that perfect location within Brampton.
And Daniel, if I can say that, Councillor, I mean, you raise a really good point. We're trying to get a better sense of with the companies we've worked with, where are the workers living? We're trying to get a good sense of that. But given what's happened in the pandemic and work from home and people moving away from the downtown, it makes perfect sense to me for a company, instead of having your office downtown and having your employees come, create more satellite offices, like go where your employees are, create little hubs. I think we're going to see that, and I think that's a great thing. If there's a cluster of workers in some area, why wouldn't you have a little satellite office there? It just makes perfect sense, and I think we'll see more of that in the future.
Well, I can assure you that we will be looking for that to happen. And I thank you all for your time here today. And Mr. Chair, I'm happy to move receipt of the delegation. Thank you.
Thank you. We have I don't see any more questions, so we have a motion from Councillor Vicente to receive the delegation. Is anybody opposed? No, thank you. The motion carries. We'll bring down staff report 12.2.1 regarding Toronto Global results update as well. Do any members have any clarification questions of staff in regards to the report, or any questions? No questions to 12.2.1 staff report regarding Toronto Global results. Councillor Santos.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Just to confirm, this is a report for information to be received only, correct? Yes, that's what it is.
Yeah.
So there's still an opportunity for us during budget deliberations to bring this particular item up, I imagine, through you, Chair?
Yeah, why don't you put that as a recommendation as well, so it's covered and it'll come back at budget for further discussion.
Sure. So through you, Chair, Mr. Clerk, would that be, and that staff, and that the report be considered during budget deliberations? Is that an appropriate addition, Mr. Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is a way to receive the report and put a note through a motion that the matter be considered during budget, or the report itself could be just referred to Budget Committee. Therefore, the report in its current state will be on the Budget Committee agenda for deliberation.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that. That be referred to Budget Committee.
Okay,
thank you.
So, thank you, Councillor Santos. So we have a referral motion for 12.2.1. I don't see any other questions. Is anybody opposed? Hearing and seeing none, that is referred to budget. Next item is 6.3, a delegation regarding Hispanic Heritage Month. I believe Karen is going to lead the delegation. Karen, you have 5 minutes for your delegation.
Good morning, Your Worship. Patrick Brown, Mayor of Brampton, Regional and City Councillors, and other delegates, dignitaries, sorry. Thank you for the opportunity to delegate a very personal and dear request. My name is Karen Aguilar. I'm the founder of Open for Business Hub, a for-profit social enterprise that's passionate on supporting our local small business community through personal development and experiential opportunities to network and scale their businesses, with a focus on mentoring our future leaders and entrepreneurs. My mission is to rejuvenate and restart bolstering confidence amongst the Brampton small business community, especially the downtown core. Today, I come to you as a concerned resident. To sing the praises of cultural diversity is not to forget that Latin America as a whole was built on a history of colonial violence, genocide, enslavement, and exploitation. For those reasons, Latin America is a place of perpetual mourning for its violent past, complicated present, and uncertain future. In some ways, we may say that a region built on colonization and neo-colonialism exploitation is bound to exist in a collective state of post-traumatic stress. That is one sad but realistic identifiable trait that unifies Hispanics. In a sense, Canada and Latin America share a historical legacy and the consequences of a colonial past. We shed the same post-colonial tears and hope for decolonial measures. To some people, myself for instance, the main problem of the region still is the drastic socioeconomic disparity and brutal inequalities. As part of the colonial legacy, Latin America still suffers from historical ongoing issues of racism, discrimination, misogyny, transphobia, and homophobia, issues that lead to tragic and violent consequences. In some ways, Latin American societies are based on social and economical exclusions. Despite these serious problems and a segment of Latin American population living under dire conditions, survival, resilience, and solidarity remain. The region is well known for people's fierce activism and for vindicating human, civil, and environmental rights. Despite its tragic history, Latin America is well known for its history of resistance and idealism, and for the endurance of indigenous languages, cultures, and traditions. The cultural entanglements that compose what we call Latin America undoubtedly offer a kind of diversity that goes beyond any metaphor of melting pot or cultural mosaic. Latin America, as lived experience, its peoples, languages, and cultures, is a kaleidoscope of constellations of plurality and inclusion, which certainly should be celebrated in Brampton. Ancestrality is a key we all carry within us. To celebrate Latin American heritage in Brampton is to use that key to open doors and to cross the bridges we build together. Latin American Heritage Month is one way to cultivate empathy, community, and solidarity, and a way to understand that Latin America may not be confined to geopolitical region because it lives in people's hearts. The idea of Latin America may have been invented in the 19th century, and it may still be a collectively imagined concept, but its emotional ties to lands, peoples, cultures, and memories lives on. I ask that you lock arms in solidarity with our Hispanic community and celebrate our history, culture, and contributions, and the richness that we add to our kaleidoscope. I'm not asking for money. I'm asking you to raise a flag in honor of those that have made an impact. Their voices were all around us, and thankfully getting louder every day. I ask that you officially recognize Hispanic Heritage Month from September 15th through to October 15th. Let's start looking at it and acknowledging instead of looking past. We'll all be better for it because unidos venceremos. United, we win. Thank you.
Thank you. Well written and perfect on time. Thank you so much, Karen. I do have two questions for you. First is Councillor Williams.
Sorry, through you, Chair, I was first.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. I thought it was from the previous delegation. Apologies. Councillor Santos.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Karen, it is so nice to see you here. I remember us chatting about this idea and you messaging me on Instagram, I think it was.
Yes.
About, hey, Councillor, what do you think about this? And I'm so pleased that you gave such a beautiful delegation as to why it's important. And certainly I support it, and I will be moving, after a couple of questions, a referral back to staff for consideration and how we could incorporate Hispanic Heritage Month in our calendar for 2022 as per your recommendation. But a question to you, can you comment a little bit about the growing Hispanic Latin American community here in Brampton? Because I've seen so many, you know that there's something happening when you see more restaurants pop up, etc. So if you could comment on that, that would be great.
So from my experience, I think that a lot of families, Latin American, Hispanic families originally came here as immigrants, and they originally settled, so to speak, in Toronto. Now having the opportunity to move from survival mode into actual thriving mode, they're now expanding into outside of Toronto to be able to raise families and start businesses, and get out of that survival mode, so to speak. And so within the last year or so, I've been able to connect with quite a number of different small business owners locally here within Brampton, and of course, immediately surrounding the area. And I've noticed that their biggest concern is just not knowing where to turn to for opportunity. They, for the most part, feel that a lot of their voices are not currently being heard, and I find that specifically in the downtown core, there's a few specific small businesses that are of Latin American descent. I'm sure that you guys are familiar with a couple of them down there, and the support that's given to them through the city is not only encouraging and motivating, but it helps bolster their confidence to be able to set up a foundation for them to thrive in a community where they can express themselves and that they can continue representing the culture and infusing the community with a little bit of our spice. I hope that answers your question.
And I hear you on that. And I think in addition to the very important history and education piece of a growing community here in Brampton, the beautiful cultural aspect of the Latin American Hispanic culture is something that's personal, very personal to me. You know, I do all those dances: Argentine tango, the salsa, the cha-cha, the merengue, the bachata, cha-cha, the rumba. I do all of them, and I think having a month where we celebrate and showcase that in Brampton, as well as learning about the history of the community, would be a beautiful addition to the mosaic that we celebrate every single year. And so I see the motion on the screen, and thank you, Karen, for coming to push for this. I know that folks at Segovia and Michuros and so many other businesses across the city will be very pleased. I'd like to refer this to staff, and perhaps a question to staff. Does this suffice in terms of direction to include this within the corporate events program, or do you require me to ask for a report back? I guess that's a question to staff. Anyone? Hello?
Councillor, we don't need a report back. What I would say through the chair that this report for 2022 is coming forward. I believe it will be in December. So I can take this back to the team, and council will be approving that report, which includes our commemorative dates and events for all of 2022. So I can ask them to look at this one as part of that report coming forward, and inclusion therein.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I have no further questions. I can't wait to celebrate and have some sort of a salsa day during next year for the Hispanic Cultural Heritage Month. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
What month would it be? What month would it be?
Go ahead, Jason.
Just want to confirm what month it would be when I go back to the team.
That's a great question. So I was proposing between September 15th through to October 15th. And the reason why behind that is because September 15th and in the month of September, there are quite a bit of different Independence Days that are celebrated amongst Central America and the Latin American community. And so leading into the celebration, it would be an honor to also be able to have our flags here in Brampton raised in honor and solidarity with that.
Thank you.
Thank you. So are we looking to just receive the delegation then because staff is going to bring a report back, or are we still looking to refer this back, Councillor Santos, just for clarification?
I think to be referred, the delegation or the comments made in the delegation be referred to staff for consideration within the 2022 corporate events program, which Jason has shared will be coming in December, that calendar. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Okay, no problem. Just want to clarify that. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Hi, Karen. It's great to see you here today. This is great. I actually was going to ask why September 15th to October 15th and not a full month, but you had just explained it, and so that's great to know. And it's funny that well, it's not funny, but I think it's amazing that you're here today, because I was looking around at the demographics of Ward 7 and 8, and actually the Latin community is one of the fastest growing, according to the the census, the new census that's coming out. I think it's like about 12%, and so there's been a significant increase, especially Spanish-speaking residents in this side of Brampton, and so. You know, I think Brampton is such an inclusive city, and I want to make sure everybody feels like they are a part of this city. And so I'm glad that you're here to you know, wish us to do a Hispanic Heritage Month. I think we absolutely should. So I do support this. So I just wanted to share that, yeah, this is great. Thank you for coming. And I have to say, I love your reels and the ones when you're dancing, showing us your Latin spice. I think is awesome, and so and any ways that we can help. So much. No problem, Karen. Any ways that we can help support our Latin businesses grow as well, I think is going to be vital to seeing the success of our Latin community. You know, set roots down here and live. And do you find that many are coming to you for guidance around where to go, how to get started?
That's a great question. Post-pandemic, I had realized that there was a lot of the community that were of Latin American descent. And so I figured, why not add a different branch to Open for Business? And there was Open for Business Latinos that was formed. And in launching that, the community there is very small, but it's very mighty. And they do essentially come to me for a few questions, mainly guidance on entrepreneurship, how to start, and I usually just refer them over to the BEC or any other resources that I have accessible to me, as far as that's concerned. So yeah, I do get a lot of questions from the Latin American community. As of most recent, I've taken on 3 different youth entrepreneurs of Latin American descent that are females. And we're currently running and operating a pilot program that hopefully, if everything does go well, I can then launch it through into 2022 and have it opened up for all demographics. Nice. But currently, I'm focusing on underserved and newcomer youth that are of Latin American descent. So, I mean, you've endorsed the T-shirt initiative that we did last summer. So, and that was specifically focused on the youth, the Black youth entrepreneurs. And so this is just an added on, an add-on to that. The youth is our future, and I know that if I had the resources and the opportunities that they currently have, I probably would not be where I'm at today. So that's just my way of paying it forward and being able to be of service to my community.
Wow. Thank you, Karen. And please hit me up again, hit all of us up again if you're doing another T-shirt event, especially for the Latin community. Yeah, it was a great initiative. You were able to, pull in a generous amount of money. And so the community appreciates you for that. And any way we can help, because we do have the startup visa programs as well, Beehive and some other resources at the City of Brampton. So, you know, if there are ways that we can connect you even further, like, we're here for you. So, and the whole community. So thank you so much for coming out today. Much appreciated. All right, bye.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Medeiros.
Through you, Chair, and very briefly, Karen, thanks to you so much for coming to delegate, and I will support the motion by my colleague moving forward. The one thing with Heritage Months, and my question specifically to you, me being of Portuguese heritage, and you know, one of the struggles I always have with the Heritage Months is that when we talk about celebrations and we talk about you know, it becomes you know, the stereotypes of certain cultures, and as much as that is the hook on some, so when we talk about, be it the dances and be it, you know, the drinks and the celebration. You know, having the pleasure of during my university days, study Latin American Caribbean studies, and you know, the cultural aspect of it. You know, for Brantonians to learn about people like Rigoberta Menchú from Guatemala, human rights activist, Nobel Peace Prize winner, to learn about Carlos Fuentes, you know, Mexican writer who talks about everything you've talked about, the colonization of Latin America and so on. You know, my challenge to you and to, you know, and my challenge to you is the same challenge I give, you know, the community that I belong to, is to bring a part of the aspect of culture and celebration that really goes deep into what the cultural aspects and the makeup of the country. And, you know, it's not just a superficial, you know, the celebration is a celebration and it's important. And I've had, you know, Latin American businesses in Warts Green for me and Councillor Bowman, where you look at the Uruguayan bakery that was over there in Argline. Unfortunately, they had to repivot, and they're now opening up. They have Empanada City, which is over here off of McLaughlin. We know about Bachi Gifts and the great work that, you know, they do in Suburban Heritage Month. And I know when we had a Heritage Hispanic celebration downtown Brampton, it was very successful. But my question to you is that, you know, how important, and you touched on really important issues on promoting culture and promoting especially Latin American culture. And Councillor Williams was so right about how growing the population is, you know, going to St. Mary's Church. And you know, I was floored when I, you know, understanding their Spanish language masses, but it just meeting people involved in all different sectors. A lot of the workers that we think are traditionally before, you know, everyone worked in construction, you know, or either Portuguese or Italian or so on, and that's changing. You see a lot of Latin Americans who've come over and they work in those sectors. So just some of those comments on how do you sort of provide a different cultural experience and to really, you know, focus and show Bramptonians the rich history of what the Latin American culture is.
So I think that by allowing the actual community to use their voices, to share their experiences immigrating here, you know, and sharing their triumph stories. So a lot of the small businesses that you did mention, whether they're first generation immigrants or not, they've taken a step outside of what is traditionally the norm, especially in immigrating here, which is to just go into whatever position you can get into to make an income to pay the bills every 2 weeks. And I think that by celebrating those particular small businesses that have decided to take a different approach to thriving and letting them share their stories, perhaps allowing other people to come in and contribute to the kaleidoscope that is the Latin American community, I think would allow other people, other demographics, and just the community in general to see that while we are very much an individual and very unique community, we are also very much alike in so many ways to other, like you had mentioned, the Portuguese community, the Filipino community. You know, we all have gone through a lot of grief and suffering, and have been able to, for the most part, come out of that. And I think that by being able to celebrate with one another and not just focusing on the dancing. I mean, the dancing and the food is definitely on the top of the list, but also celebrating because there's in September, there are a lot of, like I mentioned, different Independence Days. It gives the opportunity for the entire collective of the Latin American countries to be able to showcase some of the things individually to each one of them. So while collectively it would be a month celebration, within the month and as underneath the month, so to speak, we would be able to then showcase individual countries so that it's all inclusive. They're all able to bring to the table their individuality and what sets them apart amongst that kaleidoscope. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and through you, Chair, thank you very much. And really, what I'm trying to get at too is like when I go outside, I think Brampton needs to be reintroduced to Latin American community here in Brampton because it is growing, it is dynamic. I interact with them and informally through sports and other things. So I know, and I think there's just a rich story to tell, and the challenge and what we always say. I think that this council is really unified and really letting the community know that City Hall really belongs to you. So if there's events, if there's opportunities to bring to light the rich cultural history, because it is so beautiful. When I go to Toronto, for example, in certain pockets where there's Latin American celebrations, not only are we enjoying the music and the food, but also there's that cultural aspect of the art, the paintings, the literature, all that. So that's what I would love to sort of come out and see that aspect, arts and culture from Latin America. So thank you so much for coming forward, and thank you for my colleagues for supporting this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fertini.
Thank you through the chair, and thank you, Angela, for coming in. It's a funny thing that my son-in-law is Latin American, and he kept always asking me the last 2 years, how come we don't have Heritage Month for us? And I remember going back 3 years ago, we go to Toronto, off of Christie there, they have a lot of big festival, the 3 days, and it's just enjoying, and I will be supporting this motion, and thank you for coming forward. Brampton, I think we have many different types of Heritage Month, and the more we have, I think we got to be equal to everyone. And thank you once again for coming in, and thank you to my colleagues.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I don't see any other questions, so I have a referral back to staff. I see your director, Tammy, wants to say something before I put the referral on.
Thanks, Chair Singh, and through the chair. Just want to flag and appreciate the September 15th to October 15th. Just at a quick look, that's in the United States. That's the dates they use. Our federal government and province have both noted it as October would be the month. So maybe we could do a bit more due diligence with the events team on that and not specify the date here, so I can just do a little more review with the group. But I would imagine we may want to align with the federal and provincial governments rather than the U.S. dates. And just flagging, Karen, it's a good point, but generally our heritage months are kind of encapsulated in a 30-day window, not over 2 months. So just flagging that for the other ones that we recognize and acknowledge. Thank you.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Karen, for delegating today. I have a motion to refer this back to staff from Councillor Santos. Is anybody opposed? Hearing and seeing none, the motion carries. Next item is 6.4, delegation regarding the noise wall on Brussels Avenue along Highway 410, Ward 2. Item 9.2.4 is related to the staff report regarding Brussels Avenue Noise Wall Ward 2. We also have related correspondence 9.4.1 for consideration. Joining us today, we should have Sue, Danny, Peter, Robin, and Ron. After the delegations, we can consider the staff report 9.2.4 and the correspondence 9.4.1 now, or wait until the delegations are completed. I will ask the area councillors what they would like, Councillor Pleshy or Councillor Willens. Okay, so Councillor Pleshy has indicated he would like to speak to the items after the delegation, so we will bring down staff report 9.2.4 and correspondence 9.4.1 after the delegation. Welcome, Sue. You have up to 5 minutes, and I will give you the 1 minute warning as well. Thank you so much for coming to delegate today.
Mr. Chair, just a bit of an update. There were 5 registered delegates. Sue has indicated she cannot attend today's meeting, so she's provided some written remarks that delegate number 5, Ron Beausoleil, will read when it's his turn to speak.
Okay.
Also, we have Danny Sukraj here. Delegation 3, Peter Ukama, and Delegation 4, Robin Singh, do not seem to be present. So at the moment, we only have Danny Sukraj and Ron Beausoleil. So Danny, you can unmute your mic, and you have up to 5 minutes to address the committee. You can proceed.
Okay, thank you for clarifying, Clerk.
Am I on? Everybody hearing?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I have edited the original address that I sent to stay within the 5 minutes time frame. So I'll be reading on my own version here. And I want to go ahead and say, Mayor Mr. Patrick Brown and members of council and city staff, good morning to everyone. Today I want to address you about the noise level of vehicular traffic on the 410, Highway 410, affecting a specific section of Brussels Avenue. For the introduction, my name is Danny Sukraj, and has been living in Brampton for the past 30 years now. I am the original owner of my current home for about 15 years. My house is located on 78 Brussels, parallel to the 410 highway. I remember that the noise issue came up in 2007 and 8 before the city via representation by community involvement. The newly built northern half of Brussels Avenue has been walled, leaving this whole section about 15 years now without protection. I take great pride in home ownership and simply I'm an outdoor person. I spend a lot of time in the spring and summer nurturing my lawn, flower beds, and vegetable garden. In 2013, the volume level when looking at TV was 25. Now I have it up to 45. This is literally implying that I'm going deaf due to the exposure of the noise level emanating from the 410. The noise has become a health hazard and remedial action is extremely necessary. The city is good at taking care of residents' issues. I have seen barrier noise wall erected throughout Brampton. The noise has become overbearing at this point and hope some action can be taken to alleviate this nuisance. Brampton has seen significant population growth and relatively the highway has seen an increase in traffic, which resulted in the widening of the highway to the south by the province. I began email correspondences first with Councillor Mr. Doug Willans and copies sent to Councillor Mr. Michael Paleshi and Mayor Mr. Patrick Brown on Friday, May the 21st, 2021. On Tuesday, May the 25th, Mr. Gary Collins from the mayor office responding in a positive way. He indicated that the engineering department has been looking at the noise issue and a meeting with MTO was scheduled. Mr. Bishnu Parajuli was coordinating the city noise wall program and a report was being prepared to bring to council. I also sent an email to Mr. Kevin Yard on May the 27th about the noise issue. On May the 28th, I learned from Mr. Gary Collins that an EA study would be done by MTO for the widening of 410 from Queen Street to Beauvais, which would take several years. This plan will not affect the area in question, and action will be needed before this plan is initiated. Manager of Infrastructure and Planning, Mr. Bishnu Parajuli, in response to my email on May the 25th, said that the city is trying to get the MTO involved in the process, and a meeting was expected sometime in September. At that meeting, according to Mr. Parajuli, MTO clarified that they are not funding any noise mitigation measure for Bristol Avenue. That is the past. Now let us focus on alleviating the stress and hardship of community residents. We have been suffering for years of inaction. Time for the city to make amends. I call upon council to do whatever needed to build the noise wall. Before I conclude, I want to express sincere thanks to the Office of Mayor Brown via Mr. Collins and Mr. Vishnu Parajuli for their timely responses to my email. I wish Mayor Brown and Council all success in their endeavors to make this flower town a proud place to live. We are growing by leaps and bounds.
Thank you. Thank you, Danny. Really appreciate the delegation. To the clerk, I can receive all the delegations together, correct? We can move on?
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Okay, next is Ron. Ron, the floor is yours. And I know you're reading out, I think, Stu's notes as well. So I'll keep that into consideration with the time as well. Thank you.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I have another person here. Stephen also wanted me to say something too. He was supposed to be on this list too, but he couldn't make it from day one, but he said he put a letter in as well. You guys have the letter? Stephen Morrell?
Let me double check. I think that might be
Mr. Chair, I believe that's correspondence 9.2.4.
Yeah, we do have it. You don't need to read that.
Don't need to read that? Okay. You should have Sue's as well. It's basically, you know what? It's all the same thing. Sue just wanted to say that her hydro bill's been extremely high because we have to leave the air conditioning on from like February till November because of the noise. And it's that simple. And I just wanted to basically, I'm not a very good talker, but this noise has been going on for a long time since I've been here. I've been here for like 12 years, like after these guys. The original, and I don't even live on their street. I live this one, I'm behind there, so I'm behind it, behind that Brussels. But you know what? I've been looking into this for 4 years since I've been here because I was really mad at the noise. And they all told me all about these other things that the city tried this and tried that. But I really get mad when I see walls put up on Williams Parkway last year, and they don't even allow trucks on that street. Like on Williams Parkway, no trucks are allowed. When you get off the highway, sign right there, no trucks. And we have all this traffic 24/7. And, you know, I know they did a study recently, and they recommended we get this wall. So I don't know why we have to be here and fight this. I think you guys should just automatically put this thing up because we really need it. And that's all I can really have to say. I can talk the same things that those guys have already said, you know, with Sue's letter and Steve's letter. It just brings the house prices down. And all the people originally lived here are probably moved out because of the noise. And we don't want to move just because of noise. And just one last thing. Mayor Brown was at my house before he became mayor. And he said to me, Ron, is there any problems in the area? He just said, how's the area? I said, it's fine. I said, but I do have one problem. And I pointed to the 410. And I said, that is a real problem in here. If you can get in and be a mayor, we'd like something done about this. And he said, yeah, I would see what we can do. Like I'm saying, Mayor Brown's got a lot to do, I know. But that's the first thing he said, well, if I get in, I'll look into it, which nobody did, of course. I understand that. But I'm just saying, you can't even have a conversation outside with your friends or family, or even the neighbors without having to yell at each other. So if you guys should actually all from council should come down here at our place and just open your window in the car and drive by and listen to what we hear all day. It is very disturbing. It takes away our life. It really does. Can't even open your windows at night and have a nice sleep with the wind coming in without hearing that all night. So
thank you.
That's all I had to say.
Okay. Thank you, Ron. And I'm going to bring down 9.2.4 correspondence 9.4.1 as well. And I think your area councillor will address some of the concerns. Councillor Pleshy, I pass it on to you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I thank the delegations. I know how passionate they are, especially about this specific item. It was in 2014 that I was knocking doors, and it was, and Ron's absolutely correct. If any councillors really want to get a sense of what they're talking about, all you need to do is go down there and you literally cannot have a conversation outside of the house because of the traffic. And it was one of the first it was one of the first promises that I had made to the residents there, that I was going to work on this. And when I did start working on it in 2015, when I brought it to staff's attention, it was just it was roadblock after roadblock after roadblock, and slowly learning and trying to work with the then Liberal government to see what we could do. It was just a matter of the fact that they used concrete instead of asphalt, and concrete just pushes that noise out so much further than asphalt absorbing it. And that's what the smallest item was. And staff and myself and the area MPs, you know, we worked on trying to get the province to come to the table to at least help the city do something about this. And after years and years, it wasn't done. And I am so sympathetic to the residents' needs and concerns, because it has taken way too long to finally get this report before us, so that council can go ahead and support this and get this noise wall erected. So if there is anybody from staff that can jump on and just talk about some of the issues that we had in trying to get this this put up, I'd appreciate if staff could comment.
Tim Koslak, the Director of Capital Works. It's our report coming forward. It's 9.2.4. I guess the noise back in the 20 years ago when the subdivision was built and the highway was built, as the councillor mentioned, there's increased noise levels due to the concrete in the road base. So the surface of the road does make noise, being concrete, more than the asphalt did. Also, the traffic demands and growth, I think, were a lot more than anybody expected. So when they did the development at that time, the highway wasn't extended as far as it was, and the growth and demands weren't as high. So the noise levels they anticipated were quite a bit lower. I think that's one of the reasons at the time when the development was built, they didn't build the noise wall. But we have a recommendation report here to bring forward to include in the 2022 budget to construct a noise wall. And maybe I'll let Bishnu Parajuli, who's the manager in that area and is working on the report, provide a bit more details of his report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bishnu Parajuli, manager of infrastructure planning. Yeah, this noise issue seems to have been there for me, way before me, and when I started looking into it, there's a lot of correspondence between MTO and the city. So city thought that this is MTO issue, MTO thought that this is city issue. There's a fair bit of time lag during that discussion. And recently we did a noise study, and that noise study identified that the existing noise, current noise level is from 63 dBA to 65 dBA, depending on where the location is on the outdoor living areas. And city's policy is if there is a noise level greater than 60 dBA, so there should be some kind of mitigation required. And that 65 dBA of current noise level is expected to grow to 66. So based on city's policy, it warrants some noise mitigation there for outdoor living area. So we also had a meeting with MTO recently, and to get some kind of to explore the funding possibility through the province, and they clearly they clarified that there is no provincial policy that allows them to fund noise mitigation here. Their point is this subdivision was registered when the 410 extension north of Bobard was in progress. And the work of MTO started when this subdivision, just before the subdivision was built, and took several years. So as a result, they cannot fund this one. They say this is the city's responsibility to deal with it. And as Council Policy mentioned, there's some kind of timing issue. The noise model was done at that time, assuming the standard surface condition, which is typically asphalt, and the MTO ended up constructing as concrete. That's the main reason that the original subdivision noise report didn't capture that. And also what we found is as a result of growth around this area, the design traffic volume at that time is much less than what is the ultimate expected traffic volume in this area. So there are two main issues that was kind of not captured at that time. So as a result, the noise level which is there, which is beyond the 60 dBA cutoff point for warranting noise wall. So this report recommends a noise wall there. It recommends to include some budget for 2022, which is about $2 million estimate.
And thank you for that, Vishnu. And I would like to say that if we can use this as kind of a learning tool, and I've talked about it before with traffic studies and noise studies, that we really need to, when we're doing these studies, think about the worst case scenarios, because this was the worst case scenario. At the beginning, the noise wasn't so much of an issue, that the highway didn't push through. It ended at Sandalwood at the time that they were originally looking at this. And then when the province went ahead and laid concrete down instead of asphalt, that changed some things as well. So in future, when we're looking at subdivisions like this, we need to take into account those possibilities, and also when they're adjacent to provincial roadways, provincial highways, or see what the future plans are. We also need to hold accountable the province to effectively build what they're going to build and construct through the material that they're going to use. If not, then we need to have some kind of recourse to be able to go back to them to say, well, this is what you proposed, this is not what you built. So if in the future we can also look at that, and I'm happy to bring the report forward and happy to move support of the recommendation to construct the noise wall. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Pleshy. Mayor Brown.
Councillor Singh, I have heard a lot about this issue, and Councillor Pleshy has been raising it consistently, and I know he's been working with MTO on it. And so, I do believe we have an obligation to make sure that our residents and the various corners of the city have the ability to enjoy their homes, not obstructed by noise that inhibits their ability even to have conversations. And there is a challenge in this location that we keep on hearing about because of the number of correspondents we have. And so, I'm going to support the local councillor on this. And if a motion comes forward to expedite this, I'd be supportive of it. And I just want to thank the delegates for coming forward and voicing their concerns.
Thank you, Councillor Dillon. Councillor Dillon?
Thank you. Sorry about that. No, definitely I've had a chance to listen to the residents and have some, obviously some sympathy for them. It's really tough to even sit in your backyard or enjoy even a conversation with somebody, and definitely we'll look to support this noise wall. I know Councillor Singh, yourself, myself, and Mayor Brown are working on a similar noise wall at the region, which will be coming soon. And so we look to get the support at the region from our colleagues there as well. And so it's definitely an issue, and I really hope that we're able to get this up and resolve this problem. So thanks a lot, Councilor Pulaski, for your work on this, and look forward to supporting you.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions, so we'll move first to receive the delegations. I have a motion moved by Councillor Willens to receive the delegations. Is anybody opposed? Hearing and seeing none, the motion carries. Now we'll receive staff report 9.2.4 and correspondence 9.4.1 together, and we'll have that moved by Councillor Pleshy. Is anybody opposed? Hearing and seeing none, staff report 9.2.4 is moved, and correspondence 9.4.1 is received. Thank you, Councillor Pleshy, and thank you, Councillor Willens, and thank you to all the delegates for coming and taking time out. I know it's been a long journey, but I think we're happy with the results. Moving on to 6.5 is a delegation from Ruby Delon, CEO and founder of Pink Attitude Evolution, and John Stevenson, founding principal Culture IQ, Changing Faces of Canada's Workforce. Welcome, Ruby and John. You have 5 minutes for your delegation.
Good morning, Chair, Mayor Brown, and respected members of Council. My name is Ruby Dillon, CEO and founder of Pink Attitude Evolution, and joining me today is John Stevenson, founder of Culture IQ. John and I are here today to speak about the national study driven by 2020 Summer Stats Canada report, which has identified that South Asian women, despite being highly educated, are amongst one of the highest unemployed groups in Canada. This is both pre and post-COVID. However, the numbers have substantially increased in the latter part. Our organization's focus is South Asian women. However, the study has been benchmarked against a broader Canadian demographic. So we're here to truly unpack this problem and find out what barriers prevent South Asian women from being fully utilized in the workforce. What you will learn today is this is not a local, but a national economic issue for Canada. Next, please. This is a brief agenda that we will be covering off today. Next, please. So a little bit about Pink Attitude Evolution. It was founded in 2015, now led by a passionate group of cross-sectional professionals who share a common vision to empower South Asian women to achieve and reach their full potential in their chosen endeavors. We have grown from being a grassroots organization which solely focused on celebrating the achievements of South Asian women to now programming, community initiatives, and soon to be launched podcasts. Our 4 key focuses are in 4 cohorts. Those are high school, post-secondary, middle management, and next chapter. The latter is women entering in the workforce for the first time and re-entering or pursuing a new career. These cohorts have been identified as pivotal points in one's life and require the greatest level of support, knowledge, and confidence to make the most important and informed decision that will shape their journey. I would now like to hand it over to John, who will take you through the next part of the agenda.
Thank you, Ruby, for this. I appreciate that. Next, please. Culture IQ is delighted to be supporting Ruby and the team at Pink Attitude for this important research project. Next slide, please. Just want to take you through what drove this research project was discovering by Stats Canada that despite being highly educated, South Asian females had higher levels of unemployment relative to other non-visible and visible minority females. Next slide, please. Over the next few slides, I want to take you through some of the stats that I'm sure you're familiar with to give you the context to the importance of the study. As you know, Canada's fortunate to receive a lot of newcomers into the country on an annualized basis. Next slide, please. Obviously, there was a big dip due to COVID last year. The government has decided going forward over the next 3 years, federal government, to bring in over 400,000 newcomers on an annualized basis. Next slide, please. And as I'm sure you are aware, the largest area of the newcomers are coming from is from Asia, with South Asia being the major area where people are coming from into the country, making us really important for the future growth of the Canadian economy. Next slide, please. What's driving this, of course, is really the decline of the natural population increase in Canada. By 2056, immigration represents 100% of the growth of the country. So this is a really critical, as I'm sure you're aware, driver for the entire Canadian economy. We rely absolutely on international students and newcomers to continue to drive and fill those holes within the labor force. Next slide, please. One of the issues we identified as well, and this is going to be looking at through the study, is the impact of COVID really hit the South Asian women hard, because a lot of them are working in areas that were dramatically hit and impacted by COVID, including retail and areas like food service and tourism as well. Next slide, please. And this slide finally just summarizes, again, the level of education that South Asian women have relative to other visible and non-visible minority females. Next slide, please. Our study, over to you, Ruby, sorry.
Not a problem. This national program is a three-part initiative, beginning with the research, then dissemination, and last and most importantly part to me, the action plan. In this, we will lay out solutions for barriers that prevent not only South Asian women, but for all women of color to be fully utilized in the Canadian workforce. We're excited to share that this organization was selected to be one of the many recipients for the Federal Feminist Grant, thanks in part of local Brampton MP Sonia Sidhu. Also want to take this opportunity to thank Claire and Andrea from the Economic Development Department in the city of Brampton, as well as Councillor Martin Menderos and Councillor Dillon, who's been a big part of our support in the years prior to getting here today. Next page, please.
Our study has a two-part series.
Just want to give you the 1 minute warning. Thank you.
Okay. Our slide is, I'll be very quick. We have a two-part series. Part one was key informed interviews. We've interviewed over 20 leaders within Canada. Part two is over 2,000 Canadians will be surveyed in a quantitative study. Let's skip to the last slide, please. You can skip, stop there, please. I'll go back one.
Thank you. So lastly, we're grateful that this study, which only started a few months ago, has garnered national attention. The problem of the future needs to be addressed today. We no longer can ignore the fact that Canada is increasingly relying on newcomers to drive the Canadian labor force. It's up to all of us to come up with solutions to allow all Canadians to realize their true potential. So today we thank you for your leadership as a municipal partner on joining us on this important initiative, and seek your continued support as we tackle this issue that will impact not only us, but all of Canadians. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ruby and John. I don't see any questions from councillors. Just giving them.
Sorry, Councillor Singh, I had a quick comment.
Okay, I thought it was from before. Okay, Councillor Dillon, the floor is yours.
Yeah, no, sorry about that. Actually, I just had a little problem with my keyboard. I wasn't able to punch it in, but I just want to thank the delegates for coming in today and really highlighting this important issue, and particularly in Brampton, where 40%, I believe, up to 40% of the population is South Asian. Looking at and addressing this issue is something really important, and just with the evolution of Pink Attitude in where it's come from and what it is today. It's really great to see you guys helping so many of our women and empower them as well. And to Ruby as well, I just want to say thank you. Just on our personal note, you've been so involved in the community and helping so many people out. And I wish there's more people like you. We'd certainly have a much greater city, but your contributions have been pretty significant. I just want to make sure that I address that. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you, Councillor Dillon. Councillor Medeiros.
Yeah, very quickly. Thank you through you, Chair, and thank you for the delegations. It's really important the issue that you're tackling. My question to you, Ruby, because I know the great work that you're doing. I think the community is recognizing, how you've grown this organization, this movement, let's say, and if you can just maybe speak to us about, the reaction in the community, especially around, role modeling, especially around providing that sort of support, especially for young females. That I remember that's something that you're very passionate about, in getting them their first work experience, getting them, into sort of more male traditional careers. And if you can just speak to that empowerment, what's been the reaction, especially around the younger cohort in the community.
Yeah, so I think it's been really well received. First, to have a grassroots organization, to have those examples come to the community versus if you're not in a corporate setting, you wouldn't be able to meet these people or sort of see what possibility looks like. So we definitely see the enthusiasm and the hope that these the younger cohort especially sees, and the aspirations that they want to achieve. They sort of see that in front of them and feel that they can fulfill that. I think that's been like the most heartwarming part of Pink Attitude evolving to where it is today. I know John's nodding his head as well too, and I'm sure he wants to add in a couple of thoughts, so I'll hand it over to John as well too.
I think what we've seen from the IDIs and what we will see shortly, our research will be published in November, is just the importance of had mentorship programs and having people that can support young South Asian women in the workforce. And there's obviously a gap that we need to look at addressing over time.
Thank you through you, Chair. And you know, you really touched on a sensitive subject when we talk about internships, mentorships, opportunities, and we at the City of Brampton, and I've actually added that as a discussion item regarding opportunities for youth and internships for our local, especially Brampton youth. So thank you so much, and I look forward to the information that will certainly inform not only my colleagues and myself, but certainly decision makers and policy makers. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I have a motion by Councillor Medeiros to receive the delegation. Is anyone opposed? Hearing and seeing none, the motion carries. Thank you to coming to delegate on this very important issue. Moving on to Sylvia Roberts, which is a delegation regarding item 9.2.2, request to begin procurement, detailed design services for maximizing people moving capacity and public realm design for Williams Parkway between McLaughlin Road and Dixie Road. Sylvia, the floor is yours, and you have 5 minutes.
Can I get those slides up?
We're going to bring them up momentarily, Sylvia.
Thank you. So just a reminder on Williams Parkway, it is roughly in the middle. It's almost perfectly in the middle of the city between Steeles and Mayfield Road. If you're looking for a major east-west corridor, this is the ideal location for it. In the staff report, it talks about maximizing people moving capacity. However, what's planned that in fact does not. Next slide, please. So when the Transport Association of Canada actually surveyed, talked to people who are cyclists, including fearless cyclists, confident cyclists, I think concerned cyclists, what they found was there was a strong preference for separated facilities. So mixed-use paths, multi-use paths do indeed count. However, if you look at the data, you'll notice that mixed-use paths are not the #1 preference. It's dedicated cycling facilities such as off-road bicycle pathways. The reason for this is when you have cyclists mixing with pedestrians, it's actually not all that comfortable. For example, I know cyclists who have ended up on the ground because they had to swerve out of the way to avoid pedestrians. I also have had to personally jump out of the way because cyclists were being inconsiderate on multi-use paths. If you don't have very much traffic, if you don't have very many pedestrians or cyclists using it, multi-use paths are okay. Next slide, please. Here is an additional slide showing additional data on how easy they are to use. And again, what you'll notice is multi-use paths are not at the top. In fact, unidirectional paths rank higher between all three. Unidirectional paths generally rank higher than bidirectional ones. That's because it's much easier when you don't have oncoming traffic, even if it's a cyclist going the other way. When you're going 30 kilometers an hour and the other person's going 30 kilometers an hour the opposite way, and you don't have a meter of space, that can start to be a bit uncomfortable. Next slide. So there's a number of issues with multi-use paths. The major one is volume. So the Transport Association of Canada guidelines suggest that separating bikes and pedestrians when volumes exceed 33 per meter per hour, where pedestrians are over 20%, or when user volumes are over 50, regardless of that. The city is proposing multi-use paths with a width of 3 meters. That means is if you get to a point where the multi-use paths are carrying more than 150 people per hour total, you need to start looking at that. Lane of cars actually carries 3 to 4 times that much. So widening the road is really not the optimal move. It's the old school kind of reactionary approach to transportation planning and is not great. However, somehow the proposal manages to be worse because it doesn't even meet that transportation demand. The Williams Parkway bus, which had so low ridership, which is considered so unimportant that when the Transportation Department, Public Works, basically offered Brampton Transit high occupancy vehicle lanes, Brampton Transit was like, we don't really care about that. It's not even in the top 10. However, its peak hour ridership is around 500. So this, a unimportant, not even top 10 bus route, dwarfs the maximum safe capacity.
Sylvia, 1 minute warning. Thank you.
Okay. So the issue is it's unsafe to have pedestrians and cyclists mixed on a multi-use path if you want to have over 5, if you even want to hit 5% cyclist boat share. The city really needs to look at having separated cycle facilities. There is actually space in the right of way if you look at it. And it would be much safer for pedestrians. It'd be much safer for cyclists. Cyclists would be more confident using it. They would be able to go faster, and the street would, and Williams Parkway would actually have a decent amount of capacity. Staff really needs to go back and review how they're maximizing capacity, because I don't think in the long term this complies with Transport Association of Canada guidelines, and we might have to rip this out in 10 years, which is kind of wasteful to have to go down and hack some more trees again. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll, if Councillor Vicente is okay, we'll bring down 9.2.2 and I'll pass the floor on to you. Yep, Councillor Vicente.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Sylvia, for the delegation. And I will be moving for receipts of the delegation and for the report to be accepted by members today. Just a quick comment to everyone. The work that the City of Brampton has done over the better part of the last decade with respect to Williams Parkway was based on the idea that when you have a lot of congestion, that the solution is to add more lanes. And we know that that is not the case. And thank you, Sylvia, for pointing that out. It really is not the ideal way to move more people. The way is, in fact, to make investments in transit, in active transportation, and improvement of the pedestrian realm, which is the reason why we ask staff to rethink how it is that we can build this corridor to better fit the use and to fit the future of what the City of Brampton will be. This is a east-west corridor, which, unlike the other major corridors that cut through the city east to west, is exceptionally narrow. And the idea of putting in 6 lanes of traffic, essentially putting in asphalt from wall to wall. And, we've had many robust discussions here about sound barriers and walls and the need for them. And both Councillor Santos and I can tell you that residents in this area detest the wall. We were unable to find out from staff when that color was approved, but I digress. That is a completely separate matter, which we were unable to change in this term. So we move ahead, and so we are forging ahead with respect to the work that needs to be done on Williams Parkway. And just a quick question to staff, if you can comment on the design work that is about to happen, on what will be the people moving capacity of the current design, specifically as it pertains to pedestrians and for active transportation.
Through the chair, it's...
Go ahead.
Through the chair, it's Tim Koslak, the Director of Capital Works. With the design, I guess we're starting the design right now. We did a concept as part of the presentation to council on the options for it. So we'll be refining the design and be able to look through some of the different options like the speaker mentioned. We will look at the option of putting a separate sidewalk and even the width of the multi-use paths. We're reviewing that. It's a bit of a balance between the width of the multi-use path and sidewalk and also the ability to do landscaping in the area. And a lot of those will be refined through the detailed design process. So we'll have more information once the design starts and we begin that process in a bit more detail.
Thank you. And can members of committee and the public be assured that staff will implement what is the best in terms of standards for the design of that portion of Williams Parkway?
Yes, through the chair, the design will be done to accommodate future demands also. So it'll consider the current anticipated demand and also for the future, just to ensure we don't have to do changes to the layout in the next few years. So it'll be done to be able to design for the future.
Thank you. And for residents who are listening, a question that both Councillor Santos and I receive quite often from residents is with respect to the re-greening, if you will, of the corridor. Unfortunately, a lot of trees, shrubs, natural elements were lost for the construction of the noise wall. What will staff be looking to achieve as part of their design with respect to plants, trees, shrubs, green, etc.?
Through the chair, we've done some planting in that area this year, and we're also anticipating doing some more planting next year. And also as part of the design for the multi-use path, sidewalks, and intersection improvements, we're going to do a full landscape plan, and that'll look at doing intensification of landscaping where we can. There's certain areas, there's parkland beside the road, and we can do mass planting to really give it that pop feature when people are going along so it stands out. But we will have more information as we continue the design, but it'll be a big focus on the landscaping component of it to ensure it's as nice a realm as we can for pedestrians and cyclists.
Thank you very much, and thank you, staff, for all of your hard work on this challenging file. Mr. Chair, happy to move the report and receive the delegation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bowman.
Thank you very much to you, Mr. Chair. Just a very quick question, Tim. Where are we on the thought of painting the walls?
Through the chair, we're doing a public comment. There's a survey we're putting on the web page, and we're also putting some notices out that'll start shortly. Just to be able to get feedback from people on the different options. So we have three main options. One is to be able to paint the wall. One is to be able to leave it as is, with the anticipation the landscaping will sort of blend in a little bit more with the wall. And a third option, we're also looking at some public art options, just to be able to see, and it may be themed in different areas for different parts of it, or just to be able to see. So we're looking to get public comment on that. I think it's going out in the next week or two, and then we'll bring a report back to council once we have feedback from the residents and be able to bring forward a recommendation.
Okay, and is that going out just to the residents along Williams Parkway or to all residents?
It'll be.
I'm sure most people drive Williams Parkway who don't live there too.
Through the chair, it'll be open to all residents of Brampton or people even outside. It's going to be available on the website. We are putting information out, and we are doing mail outs to some of the people in the area also. There'll be notices in the paper, and it'll be on our city website. And we're also using our social media to be able to get it out there through Twitter, Facebook, and different social media. So we're hoping to get a fair bit of comments. I know when we did the original, whether we should widen the road or not, we got considerable feedback from everybody. So we're hoping this way we'll get a lot of feedback on it also. It's following a similar process to we did for the 4-laning or 6-laning. So.
Okay, thanks. Good work, Tim.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you, and I have a motion to receive the delegation and the recommendations from staff report 9.2.2. Is anybody opposed? Hearing and seeing none, the motion carries. Moving on, we are moving to the government relations matters section. We have a staff update, 7.1. I'll pass it on to Blaine.
Perfect. Thank you. And through Chair Singh, I'll begin with an overview of the Peel Regional business relevant to the City of Brampton for this week. The Regional Council meeting is scheduled for tomorrow, October 28th at 9:30. So we just have the link here. So the Public Affairs team has went through and reviewed the regional agenda and collaborated with subject matter experts from various departments to provide feedback and recommendations as required. So if we could move forward now, please, on to slide 3. I wanted to start today with highlight item 8.3. It's an update on the COVID-19 funding for people experiencing homelessness and other vulnerable populations, included in the Peel Regional Agenda. The report provided an overview of the operational position of the COVID-19 emergency funds that were temporary, and that staff have initiated a plan for the transition out of emergency response and return to the safe resumption of increased occupancy in regional shelters. The transitional plan includes the reference to the Nelson Center in downtown Brampton is to close at the end of December of 2021, and beginning in January of 2022, supports from a nurse practitioner will be delivered at regional shelters and other community locations in both Brampton and Mississauga until the end of June 2022. The report speaks to the Nelson Drop-In Center has been a valuable resource for people experiencing homelessness, as it provides wraparound services through multiple organizations. So staff continue to advocate for permanent funding, so enhance access to health supports for people experiencing homelessness and the precariously housed individuals and families provided throughout the pandemic can be sustained. We can move forward now onto slide number 4, please. Alrighty, I also wanted to move on and point your attention to item 10.2 on the, oh, I'm sorry, I'm on slide 4. There we go. Alrighty, sorry, attention to item 10.2 on the regional agenda, the optional small business subclass review. The province provided municipalities with an option for a property tax reduction for eligible small business operations. A working group comprised of regional staff and staff from local municipalities was established and has engaged with various stakeholders in reviewing the optional small business subclass. City staff participated with the region on the contents of the report as part of the regional area tax policy team. Determining the parameters of the program will take significant time and consultation. City staff agree that should Peel Regional Council move forward with implementation, 2023 would be the earliest possible target date. The Brampton impacts are certain for both budget impacts are certain for both lower and upper tier municipalities, as additional expert staff would be required. Tax shifts will be inevitable as there is no provincial funding for the program. Peel Regional Council can choose to reevaluate for implementation at any time in the future. So if we could move forward now to the next slide. In provincial updates, I wanted to highlight an announcement of $13.5 million through the Ontario After School Program to support 110 organizations that provide activities for children living in high priority neighborhoods across the province. In addition, the province also announced $82.5 million to expand the existing community paramedic program for long-term care to an additional 22 communities. The regional appeal is listed among communities that will be eligible for Phase 2 of the community paramedic program for long-term care funding. And in March of 2021, Peel Region received $9.75 million from the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care for paramedic services to be utilized for coordinated accessible care for seniors in Peel Region communities. Also on the provincial front, it is understood that the 2021 Ontario Economic Outlook and Fiscal Review will be released on Thursday, November 4th. Once that document is released, the Public Affairs team will consolidate the information, provide an analysis, and forward that to members of Council for your information further consideration. So if we can move forward now on to slide number 6. Perfect. So this slide, I know it's fairly busy, but the slide provides an additional details and timeline for the provincial reopening plan that's forecasted to the spring of 2022. So last Friday, the province released its plan to safely reopen Ontario and manage COVID-19 for long-term care facilities. As part of the plan, on October 25th, the province lifted capacity limits in the majority of public settings where proof of vaccination are required and indoor areas of sports and recreational facilities. And I'll go through these dates quite quickly because I do know that Mayor Brown will provide an update for his COVID-19 update today. But the key dates I just wanted to highlight were November 15th, with anticipated lifting of capacity limits in remaining high-risk settings where proof of vaccination is required. January 17th of 2022, gradual lifting of capacity limits in settings where proof of vaccination are required. And February 7th, there'll be further when proof of vaccination requirements in high-risk settings are expected to be lifted as well. So as you can see through the dates on this, anywhere between November 15th, January 17th, February 7th, and March 28th is a slow release of the limitations with an anticipated date of March 28th for when remaining public health and workplace safety measures are expected to be lifted. So that is the transitional plan between now and March in order to return to regular occupancy levels. All of the above milestones are subject to ongoing monitoring of trends in COVID-19 case numbers over the next several months. All right, if we can move forward now, please, on to slide 7. All right, in review of the federal updates, the Prime Minister revealed the new federal cabinet on October 26th. The Brampton West Member of Parliament, Carmel Cara, has become the Minister of Seniors, and the Public Affairs team extends our congratulations to the Minister. A detailed briefing note was provided and circulated to members of Council yesterday following the Cabinet announcement that outlined the assignment of the 39 ministers to the federal Cabinet. In other federal developments, the government announced that a standardized COVID-19 proof of vaccination is now available for a majority of provinces and territories. And we've also learned that there's planned accelerated delivery of the COVID-19 pediatric vaccine that is pending regulatory authorization. So it's well in the works to ensure that there's vaccination opportunities for children under 12. So if I can move forward now into slide 8, please. Okay. On October 21st, the Canadian government announced changes to the federal pandemic support programs. The existing programs such as the Canada Recovery Hiring Program, the Canada Recovery Caregiver Benefit, and the Canada Worker Lockdown Benefit are being extended to May 7th of 2022. The government also introduced targeted support to business operations that continue to face pandemic-related challenges. The two identified streams include the Tourism and Hospitality Recovery Program and the Business Recovery Program for industries that were hardest hit during the course of the pandemic. All of the new programs will require parliamentary approval and are anticipated to be retroactive. The programs that are being extended are subject to debate and approval in the House of Commons. The Public Affairs team will monitor developments and also identify opportunities in alignment with the priorities and the City of Brampton's advocacy positions. If we could move forward now, please, on to the next slide, slide 9. I just wanted to provide members of council with an update on the resolution that was provided or passed last week, and provide an outline of our approach for further information related to the regional appeal motion pertaining to the position of the regional chair. The Public Affairs team has engaged with the clerk's office, so I do appreciate the support from Peter Fay and our colleagues at the Regional Appeal to understand the applicable timelines and procedural requirements and provide members of council with the requested information. The Public Affairs team is completing this analysis and will report back to members of council shortly. So I just wanted to give you a brief update that we've initiated the analysis. We're collecting the information, and we will report back on a future government relations presentation, and we'll make sure that it's aligned prior to any further discussion at the region. All right, and the last piece I just wanted to capture and just provide members of council with a reminder that of the upcoming community consultations regarding the Brampton School of Medicine, the next phase of the planning component is for our post-secondary academic partner to facilitate community consultation sessions. President Latchme will facilitate the discussion and highlight the benefits of the Brampton School of Medicine and provide residents with an opportunity to discuss the 5 fundamental pillars that will guide the institutions. The consultations will become a critical component of the planning submission to the province in support of implementation of the medical school. So the first date we have is Thursday, October 28th at 5:30 to 6:30, Monday, November 1st from 5 to 6, Monday, November 15th from 5:30 to 6:30, Monday, November 22nd from 5:30 to 6:30, Tuesday, November 23rd from 5 till 6. All the events will be held in the council chambers with virtual participation from members of the community. That information and the calendar holds were sent out to members of council yesterday afternoon, and it is our colleagues from Ryerson University that are handling the promotion to the community to make sure that we have public participation. So that concludes my presentation for today. I'm happy to answer any questions from members of council. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. I don't see any questions, so I have a motion from Councillor Bowman to receive the report. Is anybody opposed? Hearing and seeing none, the motion carries. Next up is an update from Mayor Brown regarding COVID-19 emergency. Mayor Brown, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Councillor Singh. We didn't have a significant update today with Dr. Lowe, other than the hospital update, which is we have 7 patients. We have 7 patients in the hospital, 2 which are in ICU, but the hospital capacity continues to remain strong. Public health is supporting traditional trick-or-treating this year. I know last year it was advised against trick-or-treating for Halloween, but the conditions have improved significantly because of everyone's sacrifice in getting vaccinated. Although it is noted if you can incorporate a mask into your costume, that would be appreciated and welcomed, and an important way to help protect the unvaccinated populations. A number of school children remain in that unvaccinated cohort because they're still in that under 12 group. But overall, the picture continues to remain encouraging in Peel Region, and I want to thank Councillor Medeiros, who was on the COVID update this morning, along with our local MP, Ruby Sahota, who was sharing some of the federal updates. The federal government has eased restrictions as well. The border is reopening November 8th. They have dropped the national advisory against travel. As you know, it used to be travel was only permitted for essential purposes. And so that's good news for Pearson Airport. Obviously, it's been hard for Pearson Airport over the last 18 months, and we have a number of Brampton residents whose employment was affected at Pearson. I understand a lot of the airlines are now rehiring those individuals, given the dynamic that is changing with with travel being permitted again. So all positive updates on a federal level, on a provincial level, and on a local level, that things are getting back to normal. As you know, the province changed their protocols on Monday, and so restaurants, gyms are all back at 100% capacity. So we always said at the beginning of this pandemic that when the vaccines came, and if we got the population vaccinated, we could get back to normal. We could beat COVID-19, and increasingly it appears that's what's happening. We're getting back to normal because we exceeded our targets for vaccines, and anything we can do to continue to get those final segments of the population that are unvaccinated vaccinated, we are really going to be able to say goodbye to what was a difficult fight with COVID-19.
Thank you, Mayor Brown, and I have a motion from Councillor Bowman to receive this update. Is anybody opposed? Hearing and seeing none, the motion carries. And I'm going to ask that we break until 12:15 for lunch, and then we'll continue with the corporate services section.
$12:15. I'm just going to confirm members I do see in the session. I see Councillor Santos, Councillor Vasante, Councillor Paleshi, Councillor Medeiros, Councillor Bowman, yourself, Councillor Williams. So we do have a quorum at the moment, so you can proceed.
Yeah, just for clarification, in my section, it's only 8.3.1. Was anything added? I don't think it was. Just concerned.
Aside from councillor question period and public question period, that is it, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right, members of the council, we'll get started for the corporate services section. 8.2.1 was a staff report, which was put in consent. 8.3.1 is a discussion item at the request of Regional Councillor Medeiros regarding internship and co-op programs at the city. Councillor Medeiros, the floor is yours.
Thank you, through you, Chair. In introducing this, I just want to be cognizant of privacy and cognizant of numerous issues along with it. I guess, before I prolong a debate, I would just probably I would like to move a motion for a report back to council, and it can be in camera if deemed so, if we're talking about identifiable individuals. And the reasoning around this is that some of the, when we see our Brampton City workers around the city
doing work, and I sort of go down my way to thank them for the work they're doing, inquire about what they're doing, and just have a little chat and just really appreciate all the stuff that they're doing. And on several occasions, I've met interns who are from outside the region, and again, if it was one, I would just say no big deal. If it was two, it happened to be over like 4 to 5 interns who are outside of Brampton and outside the region. And then I know that there's been internships that I wasn't even aware of. Some internships, I know that we do have internships in legal. We have other internships throughout the organization. And I just want to get a report from staff that could be brought in camera to staff, to council, which would, I want to know what competitions they were, so how they were published, and I want to know, criteria for selecting for different departments. And the reason why I'm going through this step, and the reason why I don't want to start, I'm cognizant of what we've already went through with the investigation, and so I'm not here to, again, start raising innuendos or anything. I'm sure there's probably a very, plausible explanation. The only thing that gets my gall a little bit, especially when, and I know all of us councillors, we sometimes, we fall over each other, professing our love for the city of Brampton, professing our love for Brampton talent, in our messaging, when we're promoting the city of Brampton with companies, we're talking about all the talent we have in the city of Brampton, and yet it seems to be that I'm meeting interns, and there's a lot of internships from being offered to youth outside of Brampton, and that's a red flag for me. And again, there's probably, maybe it just happened to be the less than 1%. I just happen to have the luck of meeting, and I could be totally off mark, and probably overwhelmingly we're going to get good news. So I won't speak to, I won't raise any innuendo. I would just like next committee of council, if HR can confirm that's possible in 2 weeks, just to get a broad briefing. It doesn't have to be a report. It could be a verbal briefing. I think a report might, also maybe some of my colleagues would like to speak to this, but I just would like to know where we publish these competitions for internships, how they were given out, and if they have a rough ballpark of percentage of, Brampton youth who are getting these opportunities for internships and articling or everything else that they're doing in the organization, and if there's people from outside, because again, there seems to be a pattern of specific areas of, outside or within the GTA and outside the GTA of where people are coming from, and maybe it was just, again, something that I experienced, and there's no sort of rhyme or reason. So I would just like to give that opportunity for staff to come back to council, and I know councillors are very passionate about promoting Brampton youth and Brampton talent, and so I would assume that there would be interest. So I would move that, and I would ask for a recorded vote, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Brown.
Councillor Singh? Yes, can you hear me now, Councillor Singh? Hello?
Yes, very good. Yep.
Okay, thank you. I think we have a big responsibility, so I'm glad that Councillor Medeiros is raising this early on. I think we have an opportunity to help mentor and train as many young people as possible. But obviously, and selfishly, I think we want to make sure there's a Brampton focus. And so in that report, it'd be great if we could have maybe a legal perspective or an HR perspective on if in future years are we allowed to limit the program to Brampton residents. I know sometimes with staff employment on a full-time basis, you're not allowed to do that, but for summer students, are we able to? Maybe that's something that our city solicitor, Samira, could answer on the spot. The Government of Canada's summer internship program is very generous, and so they really enable us to create these opportunities to mentor youth, and it's something, if anything, I think we should be doing more of, and maybe have more internships available in the city. I think it gives young people in Brampton a leg up. And so is that something, Samira, you could answer right now, or is it something that could be more substantially be included in a report? So that's the first point, and maybe we can go to Samir to answer that. The second point is I'd like to know how we're doing in terms of reflecting the mosaic, in terms of our internships. I would like to know how diverse our summer students where. I know when I got elected mayor and did a tour of a number of our facilities, I just had a concern that maybe it didn't reflect the mosaic. I know we're making progress every year, but and obviously because of COVID, some of the summer employment positions weren't available. But if there is a way to get a line of sight into that as well, I think that would be helpful. And if there are communities that are not being represented in terms of the summer internships, then maybe we could actively outreach into some of those communities, let them know of how to apply. So, Councilor Medeiros, would you be agreeable to that as well in terms of adding that to the report?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, fully supportive. Thank you.
And Samira, could you answer the question on what legal rights we have given the current labor law in Ontario?
Through the chair, I'm happy to work with HR and to come back to you with a report on the various options that we have. I know that there was a report provided in the past with respect to hiring more generally, and I think the answer will be probably along the lines of that report, but I'm not able to give an answer.
Yeah, and if I recall, that answer was no before, but for a summer employment that is really a focus on Brampton mentorship, Brampton youth, and maybe the Summer Student Program Canada that helps subsidize some of these positions doesn't allow for that. Obviously, there's an agreement we have with the Government of Canada, but I would love to know how much room we have to really restrict this to Brampton. We are here to serve them and create opportunities for our youth, not necessarily youth in other cities. So I look forward to this report and glad that Councilor Medeiros has put a quick timeline on it, because very quickly it'll be January and people will start talking about summer internships again. Thank you.
Councilor Medeiros.
Yeah, thank you through you, Chair, and thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, for weighing in on it, because agreed 100%. Yeah, and the other aspect, and I do recognize, having worked in public service myself, I know how these internships work. There's the formal component, which is being published, and such as the Ontario government, they do the Ontario Internships program, and there's real opportunity to do that. But there's also the informal component, and respectfully, getting that access. And when we talk about certain equity groups, getting that access to power, getting access to opportunity, and I always use my case as an example, being a son of, factory workers at Simmons for over 40 years, Simmons Mattress, and it was very difficult for me to have people who would advocate for me to get, into those internships, and I had to seek those. And, we here in Brampton, rich in talent, and unfortunately, if, for example, if you look at our executive team and if you look at a lot of people in place, respectfully, a lot of them are outside of Brampton. And if they're the conduits into informal opportunities into the city, we certainly as councillors do our best to stay out of this fray, as this is really a staff responsibility. Certainly who's advocating for youth of Brampton is questionable. And so I just want to put a light on this, and I look forward to staff coming back with some form of information that I think all of us, and as Mayor Brown said, that internships are coming next summer, and we want to make sure Brampton youth, understanding that maybe we might be able to put legislation that says it's only for Brampton youth, but I certainly want to make sure that equity groups and Brampton youth are getting opportunities like everyone else outside. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I think HR staff would like to comment as well. Abby?
Thank you, Chair. Through the Chair to the Councillor, just a question to clarify. So the report that you're looking for, is that to sort of look at as a holistic approach for all the co-op student, internship students, and the students that we hired throughout the summer for, Parks or Rec, to sort of showcase that number and to see how many of those students are Brampton residents? Would that sort of suffice and kind of be in the realm of what you're looking for?
Yeah, through you, Chair. Thank you very much, Evie. And I'm more than happy to go back and forth with this. Essentially, what I'd like to know is a scan of, for example, how many internships have we provided, for example, over the last couple of years at the City of Brampton, what departments, and how were they published? How were they communicated to the public? You know, and if there were others that were not communicated to the public, those be identified. Because I do understand that there are informal opportunities, even though that, you know, I do find them questionable, but there might be, you know, I do know with the legal internships, I think there was an ad, I think, for the other internships. So I just want to make sure that, A, how are these kids, you know, coming through what program? B, what's the sort of percentage which would be sort of from Brampton, and understanding that sometimes some of the skill sets or there was just no interest from Brampton students. That's not what I'm saying. I just find it hard when you have students who would even apply here who are from outside of GTA, and you know, so those are the things that I would, you know, question. So I would like to sort of get that information back, which gives us a sort of lay of the land. What's been like the last couple of years? How are they published? Where did they come from? And then after, what are some solutions moving forward? Is that pretty? And I'm more than happy to speak off the line, and maybe other councillors might want to chime in. Is that okay, Evie?
Sure, that's fair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor by Councillor Medeiros, and he's requested a recorded vote. So the clerk, you can administer the recorded vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Recorded vote's been requested. All in favor, please indicate. Councillor Santos.
Yes.
Councillor Vicente.
Yes, in favor.
Councillor Willens. Don't know if Councillor Willens is back. Councillor Willens is still absent. Councillor Paleshi.
In favor.
Councillor Bowman.
Yes.
Councillor Medeiros.
Yes.
Councillor Williams.
Yeah.
Councillor Fortini.
Yes, absolutely.
Councillor Dillon.
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Absolutely.
And Chair Singh.
Yes.
That motion carries unanimously, 10-0.
Okay, great. Moving on, councillor question period. Do any members of council have any questions? I actually have a quick question to the clerk. When are we looking to get back as councillors back for council meetings?
So through you, Mr. Chair, this was a discussion item that came up at the last Governance and Council Operations Committee meeting. So at that time in late September, we were verbally advised the committee of sort of a three-prong approach or a three-stage approach. The first stage would be continuing as is, given current provincial orders and public health guidance in terms of public gatherings indoors. Therefore, that would be a continuing with remote meetings for members and for staff. And for the public, there would be in-person attendance restrictions to participate remotely. The second phase would be reassessing at the end of October, early November, so that's upon us, and we are reassessing that right now, and looking at the possibility of encouraging or allowing or accommodating more members and staff to participate in person in meetings, but continuing based on whatever the prevailing provincial orders are and public health guidance to continue with remote participation by public in terms of in-person, no in-person attendance until the end of the year. And then if all signs continue to point in the right direction, which they seem to be trending at the moment, and based on prevailing provincial orders, the Reopening Ontario Act provisions, and prevailing public health guidance, we would be looking at proceeding with in-person meetings both for members, staff, and the public as of January. Having said that, I think the reality is we would continue with what we term hybrid meetings, which would still, we have an ability and a responsibility to accommodate remote participation as well as in person. So that's the plan at the moment, but we are assessing, given the most recent provincial orders that have been released as of Monday this week, and what Blaine Lucas had provided to council earlier in his presentation.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll wait. I think there's a lot of moving parts, so thanks for staying on top of it. 8.6, is there any questions from the public to the clerk?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there are none.
Okay, so I will pass it on to Councillor Vicente to chair the Public Works and Engineering section.
Thank you, Councillor Singh and members. We have dealt with every item in the Public Works agenda, so I'll just ask if any members have questions. And seeing none, we'll move on to public question period. Mr. Clerk, do we have any questions from members of the public with respect to any item on today's Public Works agenda?
We do not, Mr. Chair. Okay,
thank you. And so with that, we'll move on to the Community Services section to be chaired by Councillor Santos.
Thank you very much, Councillor Vicente. I believe there's only one item for the Community Services section, which is 10.3.1. A discussion item at the request of Regional Councillor Fortini regarding Howden Recreation Centre and Victoria Park Arena. Councillor Fortini, the floor is yours.
Madam Chair, I think we could just leave it. We had a meeting with staff. It was really progressive and good. I just want to remind staff to make sure that they involve me inside for Howden Recreation Centre and Victoria Park and the design team. That's all. Everything else is good. So, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Fortini. Next section or next item is 10.5, Councillor question period. Do any members have any questions related to the Community Services section? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, in section 10.6, are there any questions from members of the public?
There are none, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk. I'll now pass it over to Councillor Bowman for Legislative Services.
Thank you very much, Councillor Santos. There are no reports, no staff presentations, no new business, so we will move directly to Councillor question period. Are there any questions regarding Legislative Services? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, is there any questions from the public for Legislative Services?
There are none, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. With that, I will hand the chair over to Councillor Medeiros for Economic Development.
Thank you, Councillor Bowman. So I believe there are no items as we dealt with Toronto Global. I believe now in terms of City Clerk, do we have any questions from members of the public?
We do not, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions regarding, are there any questions from members of committee? I see none. No questions referred matters list. So our next is, I do have a motion moved by Councillor Fortini to move into closed session. So City Clerk, how much time would you need for us to go into closed?
Mr. Chair, 10 minutes would be appreciated.
Okay, so it's 10:34. So let's say, 12:34. So I would say at 12:50.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. And just before we do recess, we are required to pass a motion in public to move into closed session. So the motion would be to move into closed session to deal with item 15.3, an open meeting exception under section 239(2)(c) of the Municipal Act to propose or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board.
Yep, and moved by Councillor Fortini. Anyone opposed? I see none. So